Hello and welcome to another episode of Brand Retro. And today on the podcast we have Justine Pogroske. How are you, Justine?
Hello, Mike. So great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your incredible show.
Yeah, thank you. When I went into this episode, as I kind of mentioned when we started, I didn't really exactly know where I wanted to go with it because so much of what you're doing with your company and kind of with your personal branding is in direct alignment with the kind of stuff that I do and my Cyberdogs brand. So I kind of want to dance all over the place and just kind of see where the conversation goes with some of this, because I think the back and forth and I think kind of our ability to bounce off each other is going to be pretty good because it's so aligned. So to start with, tell me how you got your business started and kind of how you shifted gears into that entrepreneurial mindset.
Got you. Well, it's a little bit of a long story, so I'll try and keep it short. But basically, I think I was always an entrepreneur from a young age. I grew up actually in Johannesburg, South Africa, and started selling toys on the back of my fence. And we made so much money, my little brother and I, and stashed all the money in like our teddy bears. And our mom found it one day and went like, are you selling drugs? Like, what's going on here? Like, where are you getting all this cash from? So that was the start of my entrepreneurial journey. And what I realized from a young age is that I was not the normal kid. I had the hustle in me. So I think, some people say, is entrepreneurship, is it something you're born with? I'm going to say yes. And when I got a little bit older, we were actually in Johannesburg, South Africa. My mom was held up by 9 men with machine guns in our house, and we had a quite a big, shift in gear. And my parents were like, literally the next day we're out. So we moved to Australia, started again with basically nothing, and I've been working since I was 12. But how I got into the world of advertising and branding was I started looking at all these awards annuals. And back then it was kind of like the Mad Men days, it was so
Yep.
great. So really inspired me. I got my first job in a publishing company, and I sat there at my desk the one day and I was like, do I really want to spend my life laying out other people's copy in a magazine? And at that time, the internet had just come out and there were all these exciting things going on with the cool web designers. It wasn't like how it is now where everyone's a content creator. It was like very in the midst of, on the brim of the new type of advertising and social media and that type of thing. So I got my first job at an advertising agency that I actually campaigned for. I worked there for quite a few years, and then I noticed a gap in the market where there was a need for more of a one-on-one service agency, because in the big agencies it was always the creative director, the account director. It was very segmented. So that's when I went out on my own, and I've been going strong since. But I mean, there have been things across the journey that have been, in waves, but it's worth it every day. And I love it. Absolutely love it. That's
Do,
$1 million branders.
yeah. So do you feel like this is kind of the gap that I saw, at least from my perspective, and I think it's probably similar to yours, but what I kind of saw was all these companies would blaze through agencies. They'd try us all on, right? So like by the time that you actually worked with a company, they're like, yeah, you're my fifth agency, you're my sixth agency. And the question that I would always ask is, well, why though? Like, why does it take so long to find one to, I mean, I get it. It makes sense that you maybe switch once or twice or three times, but when it gets repetitive like that, to me, there's a problem that's not being solved. There's something that's broken that nobody's looking at.
Totally.
And right. And what I kind of identified, at least in my experience with these companies that would kind of churn through these agencies, and then even having been on the agency side, was that nobody really focused on relationships. Nobody really focused on the pain
100%.
points of the client, that it was more this, we're an agency and we have ways of doing things and we're going to bring you in our machine. And until you tumble out the side, like nobody really looked at it from like, hey, we're going to figure out a way to make this work because what's important to us is that you succeed. Nobody really did that. And it was strange to me. Like, I feel like how are you guys missing this, or why isn't this being addressed? But the more I learned about kind of the, the traditional agency, and even the clients didn't really know that part was broken, that
Mm.
nobody was really addressing it, nobody was really fixing it. It was just kind of commonplace to just well, you know, when you break up, you find a new agency. And it was like, to me,
Totally.
that was
I
weird.
do, I do have to say that the old agency, like the ones that I worked for, especially my first one, I had the most incredible experience. Like I was towards the end, it wasn't so great, but during the time that I worked there, I was surrounded with so many incredible people. So I will say to entrepreneurs starting out, everyone thinks that they're going to start an agency, they're going to be super successful straight away. That it does not work. So you do have to put in the work, and I would say learn as much as possible. But going back to what you were saying, I think there's two problems here. People have become so good at making themselves look great and then not being able to execute on the work. And that's the churn and burn. So that's where they suck you in, they'll promise you the world, and then they don't deliver. Secondly, you've got to be really careful with who you hire, I think, online. I would do my due diligence and then also find out who's worked with them before. Because you know as well as I know, you're only as good as the work that you create, and you're only as good as the clients you work with. So I would really do my due diligence on that. But I think it's become the sea where of competition where everyone is an agency, everyone is a creator. So you got to go with the people that are strong for your brand and that will really fight for your vision, I believe.
Yeah. And I would even say, kind of to dovetail into what you just said there, I think getting that experience and perspective that's the part you have to really kind of own that mindset and to be an entrepreneur and to actually create a vision that you can see through to the end. Is you have to have the perspective of knowing what it looks like to fail, what it looks like to
100%.
be in some bad situations. So like that's honestly
Definitely.
what I tell most young entrepreneurs and creatives too, is that don't just jump right into ownership. Don't try to start your own business until you figured out what doesn't work. Like go out there and fail a few times,
Totally.
and to what you said is learn from people. Like go work at an agency, go work at a print company or whatever it is, and just soak up as much as
100%.
you can until you feel like you've got that perspective. And then at that point, yeah, I mean, then make that next step. But you have to get out there and try some things first.
Definitely. And I think the main problem, and I was speaking about this the other day on my own podcast, we're living through a day and age of instant gratification where everyone wants everything now. But the reality is there's always a shortcoming if you get it now. If you think about anything that you've achieved in your life that is really, really great, it's taken time, it's taken work, it's taken effort. Anything that has come to you instantly, like we were saying on it, if it looks like a donkey, it is a donkey. There's always going to be a catch to the other side of instant gratification. But in this world, also it's like you've got to learn to tell the difference between good and bad because there's a lot of
Yeah.
both out there.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think for you to be a proponent and a communicator and even a representative for your clients, you have to know what it looks like to fail too, so that you can help them avoid failure, or at least
A million
kind of,
percent.
yeah, to
Or
kind of
tell them
charge
what
through
to
that.
do. It's like
Yep.
that analogy, right? Like, how would you rather catch a plane? Would you want to go with a pilot who looks great, looks the part, comes in a smart Versace suit, but has never, it's his first time flying a plane? Or would you rather fly with someone who's seasoned and, maybe doesn't look so great, has a beard and whatever, and doesn't take care of himself, but has flown through storms and hail and all different terrains? I know what I
Yep.
would pick. It's the same thing with an agency, I think.
Yep. I agree. So, $1 million branders. One of the things when I was kind of digesting your content and going through stuff, I was like, man, this is really cool, because one of the things that I say frequently, and if you've heard my podcast, you've heard me say it before, but I often tell clients that you don't have to spend $1 million to look like $1 million brand, because I think sometimes in the agency world, the sticker shock and the scarcity mindset, they don't want to, like, I can't afford that, or I can't do that. And it's like
Mhm.
they start lowering their expectations of what they think them or their
I love
brand
this.
deserves.
I love this.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I've always kind of told them, like, you don't need to spend $1 million to look
Mhm.
like $1 million brand. Like you can look as good as Nike or Coca-Cola, or you can look that good on a budget. Like, and I'm not saying be cheap. I'm not saying marketing doesn't cost money, but don't let that be a hurdle. Like,
Definitely.
don't let that lower your vision of things. Because even if you think about Nike, Phil Knight spent $35 for the Nike logo when that
Mm,
was built, you know? So think about that. Think about how that Nike swoosh, it's not changed in,
mm,
since inception. So it's
yeah.
crazy
I think on
to
the
kind of
other side of that too, though, I do believe that when you go to an agency, like let's say someone comes to you or they come to me, the number that you're paying for the work, firstly, it's an investment in yourself. And if you don't want to
Mhm.
make that investment in yourself, then there's a reason behind it. And then the other thing is, we're actually paid for our experience of doing this like a million times with all different agencies. So it's not like we're going out there and, I'm sorry to knock Fiverr because it can be pretty good, but it's not like we've just come out fresh out the gate running. It's like we've done this, we've experienced it, we've tested it. I even come from a user experience background. So, as you know, it's all psychology behind why you do what you do. But what I would say is, look, I think you can definitely look great, but it's an investment in yourself. It's like if you don't
Yeah,
invest in yourself, how do you expect to look like that? How do you expect to grow? And then when you reach that growth stage, are they going to get to the next life cycle stage of their journey and go, okay, now do I not want to invest in growing? Like, what happens if I said to you, if you pay me $8,000 for this logo, you're going to turn into $1 million company because it's going to be so recognizable? Like, would you invest, or would you just be like, nah, I'm just going to go and pay $5 because, and again, it's believing in your vision too, right? When it comes to this stuff. So how much do you believe in the vision?
yeah, I think so much of it is psychological, and to me, like, even the concept's really not about the money that they spend or how much they spend. It's
Exactly.
about the belief in what they're doing, so that they get behind it, that they know that the brand that they're creating and the vision they're trying to bring to fruition is worth it. Because
Totally.
if they start kind of chiseling away at their own vision to try to save a buck, you're just lowering your own expectations. And
Exactly.
I just love that concept of being able to kind of drag them out of that and help them understand that, you can get there, but you have to think big. You have to
Totally.
see your vision through.
And it was Jim Rohn that said, work full time on your job and part time on your fortune. And I'm not saying go out the gates, blazing to work on your entrepreneurial journey if you haven't tested what it is you're creating. Because that's
Right.
important to a lot of people create things because they like it. You see this a lot on Shark Tank. Do you watch Shark Tank? I love
I
it.
do. Yep.
Especially the American version, but you see a lot where, people try and value their companies, but it's not actually worth that because they haven't made any sales. You've seen that when they stand up there
Hmm.
and they go, this is worth 5,765,000,000. And then the sharks are like, how did you get to that? Have you sold any? And they sit there and they go, no. So it's like, value your product properly, and also test it, because it's not just if your mom and your dad and you like it. It's like, does it have an audience and is it going to sell? And I think that goes back to the experience, right? Like when you come to an agency like one of ours, it's we're seasoned in it, we've done it before. And I don't know about you, and I'm sure you're the same, but like I won't just work with anyone because I need to know that my brand is attached to it and it's attached to a good product that we can actually show results. So if I can't work with you, I'll send you to someone who will, to get you to the place you need to be so that you can work with us.
Yeah, we legit won't. I won't work with people that I can't succeed with.
Mm,
Like, so, like, we sometimes have prospects that come in and they want the impossible. Like, I want
yeah.
you to take X, Y, and Z and turn it into this, and maybe they don't quite have their vision flushed out, or maybe just it's not there. If I
Mm,
can't confidently take on that project and hit a home run with it, it's just not a good fit, because I never want to position, to be selfish, I never want to position my own brand to fail,
yes, definitely.
regardless of how much money is attached to it. Because I don't, home runs is that's how we continue to grow.
Definitely.
So,
100%.
so we're pretty particular about, I mean, we want to align from a culture mindset standpoint too, but the project has to be, it's got to, we got to succeed with it, or it's not worth doing.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. When you started your business, where did you create the culture, the definition of the brand? Where did you kind of pull those? I mean, I'm guessing I know what the answer is, but tell me a little bit about how you pulled that together and how you kind of created this vision for yourself. Because, like you said, you'd studied it, right, and you'd done some agency work, but clearly, what you're doing now is you're very consistent, you're very aligned, and I can see kind of the vision coming to life with across your different platforms and with your website and stuff. So, tell me a
Oh,
little bit about how you pulled that together.
look, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's hard work. As you know, starting anything from nothing, it's hard work. It's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, tenacity, and you got to just keep going at all costs. So it hasn't just been an overnight success. And it was just this idea. I have this thing that in a sea of competition, you just have to be different. Like you have to just find that one thing that makes you tick, number one, because you have to be motivated enough through the hard times to keep going as an entrepreneur. I don't care what anyone says, because you will have ups and down days. Like you don't just switch on your website and start making millions of dollars straight away. It is consistency, exactly what you said. But the vision just comes because I truly believe that every single person in this world deserves freedom. They deserve to get out of the rat race, and they deserve to actually have someone to be able to say to them, this is what you do, this is how you create your vision, and having a big vision, because we're all put here on earth for a purpose. Like, I don't care if you're a stay-home mom, I don't care if that's what you want to do, but that's your purpose. And I think we owe it to ourselves to be the best in life that we can be. You get one shot, that is it. You know, the chances of us being here are also, it's like, you know, like an incredible position. So why wouldn't you make the most out of it is that you have? And it's not just about work. I think for me, it's a sole purpose. So that's where the name came from. But when I started it, I think $1 million was quite a lot of money. Now it's like, so we've got some new exciting things coming up.
Very cool. So, one of the things you said in there, I want to unpack that a little bit because I think whether you're a business owner or maybe you're a prospect or a client, I think unfortunately we all have the bad habit or the capacity to just like we just follow, right? We want to blend
Hmm.
in. We want to like even when a lot of clients come to us and they start a business, they want to like their benchmark is how do I look like this guy who would be my competitor? And I think that's fine if it's a point of reference and a starting point and a foundational thing. But like what I always
Yes.
talk to my clients about is you don't want to look like everybody else. You don't want to look like your competitor. You want to look like you. You want to look different. You want to break out. You want to be a disruption in that white noise. Now, I'm not saying
Definitely.
be crazy for the sake of being crazy. I mean, don't do anything that's not authentic or doesn't feel comfortable to you, but take all the things that maybe are consistent in the industry and okay, put those aside for a minute. Now let's talk about the one, two, three things that you do that you think are exceptional, that are different, that are rare. Let's focus on those things so that we extract those as the top level of your brand. So tell me a little bit about how you do that with your clients, because I've seen some of your messaging and you have your own version of how you kind of teach the clients that, but tell me a little bit about how you get them there and how you help them understand that blending in isn't the answer.
Two things to this. This is going to sound really weird, but I'm very intuitive. And I think a combination of I've just been doing this for so long and I've worked across so many different brands globally and working across different countries too. You've got to be on your game, like, because every country speaks a different visual language, right? Especially in terms of branding and how you perceive yourself to the world. And branding is different in every single country. You go look at, you've got like China and then you've got America, which I love. Like, I just think the Americans are so much bigger than life. Like, I'm obsessed with America, in case you don't know. And then you've got Australians that are a little bit safer in terms of their marketing and advertising. So it's always different. But I think how to extract that is just you really do have to go against the grain. So when we have our first conversations, that's the first thing that comes up into my head. Like, how do we make them different? Like, how do we'll look at every single point and then flip it on its head. So like, look at, I call it a competitive analysis. Like, it doesn't matter if you're looking at, a hospitality brand. It could be a burger company, but you could have an IT company that comes to you and you can pull stuff from that burger company and apply it to IT. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's just like it's mixing the two together to make it more interesting. That's probably a really bad example, but it's grabbing from each industry and then just taking stuff that's different or stuff that you like and you can apply it. It's the same with the music industry. Like you can grab little bits and pieces that inspire you from movies or whatever and then integrate it in that brand just to give it a little bit more X factor. But that initial conversation is basically a lot of intuition for me. And this goes back to soul purpose. Like, I just believe that I've got a knack for making people stand out on a global stage and also making them look like they've been around a very long time. So it's just that old school mentality in this new world that we're living in, I think.
I think that's key too in creating a brand, and it's important for the clients to understand too is that bring your experiences into your new brand. Bring it doesn't mean your brand might be new, but your
Yes,
experiences and your knowledge and what you're bringing into it is not new.
exactly.
So carry that with you. Bring that experience into the brand so that yeah, your brand is new, your logo is new, those things are relatively fresh, but at the same
Exactly.
time, the soul behind it, the reason, the authenticity, all that stuff is seasoned. That's important for
Exactly.
people to understand.
Totally. And that's such a great point because I do believe that, your business is just the outline and your brand is the soul of your business. So how are you going to put that on a global stage? How are you going to represent yourself to the world? And those people that walk around and you say, well, I don't know if anyone really uses business cards much these days unless they've got a QR code, but even a few years ago, I think prior to COVID, you get those people that would come up to you and you meet them and you shake their hand and they'd be like, oh, here's my business card, and they'd be like really embarrassed to give it to you because their brand is so crap. Like, you want to be
Yeah.
proud of what you create because I always say your branding is your visual negotiations tool. When you meet someone, when you have that one-on-one, like, you need to be proud of what it is you're selling because basically what people I think don't get is branding is the first point of contact of your sales funnel. So whether it be in person or online, that is your very first point of call. You look at all the multi-global strong brands, that is your first call, branding, and then marketing just piggybacks off the top of that.
Yeah. And you actually touched a nerve with me there because I get a lot of clients that say, well, are business cards even a thing anymore? Do people even use them? And it's like, well, if you mean like paying $8 for 1,000 of them, no, those nobody's using those.
No.
But if you have a really nice business card, one that creates an impression and one that lead like
Hell yeah.
it's so cool somebody just wants to save it on their desk, then yes,
Definitely.
it works.
Yes. And it goes back to that thing, Mike, like it's experiences because we're living in an experience age. People have become spoiled now. Why are they going to use you over everyone else? And I think this is the question anyone creating a brand or a company needs to think about. Why are they going to buy from you? Why are they going to engage you? It's just like why? Because you have to stand out.
And I think it's important that, which I think is relative and it's obvious in your stuff, is that you get that. I think
Thank you
a
so
lot of
much.
time, yeah, I think a lot of times clients go seeking for agencies, or they're just looking for somebody to do the work, and whether or not they truly understand their brand or them as a person is kind of secondary because they think about it more as a task. And
Totally.
yes, there are tasks that live within this process and within marketing, but there's so much psychology and dots that need to be connected for it to actually work.
100%.
So that's
Definitely.
important to think about.
100%. Even in terms of marketing or getting clients, I think your brand will speak a thousand words. I really believe that. I've seen companies who we branded raise $460,000 capital just because like their brand looks good and then also they've got a very strong tagline, vision, mission statement. We work with a lot of startups and we've helped raise capital for them. And it's about getting that key messaging right. It's not just about the logo, but the logo is a big part.
Mhm.
Like, you have to show people the vision. And it actually brings me back to Walt Disney. I mean, do you know he was fired for not being creative?
Right.
for his first job. And like he painted the vision of Walt Disney, the actual, like, look at it now. It's become an icon of, it's changed a bit in our times because we've got TikTok and all the stuff, but it's definitely an icon for all children around the world. And he was fired for not being creative enough. So it just
Yeah.
goes to show you got to paint the vision.
Yeah, and I think that's important, and that's part of the gift, right? That's part of the service that we aspire to provide the client, is that they might only be able to take it 50-60% of the way because they don't have that creative piece,
Mm,
right? Our job is to fill in the rest and to help them see it, and like that's the coolest part of my job, I think, is when we bring their vision to life and they're like, oh my God, I love it. And
yeah.
when they fall in love with it and you can see their gas tank is full, like they're ready to really hit the ground running now.
Yeah,
That's the coolest part. And then you have the confidence that they're going to make it because they're
definitely.
because they're jacked about it.
100%. I love that feeling too. It's awesome. And that's, I think, it comes down to a legacy brand, right? Because I think if you're someone ambitious, or if you're just in this world as an entrepreneur, our aim is to leave a legacy. So creating a legacy brand is really important, which is what we basically do. So it really is a gift. I love what I do. I can see you love what you do too.
Yeah, it's a good time because I know what it's like when I get jacked up about something, or if I really like something we're doing with our company. So I know what that feels like. So when I can help them do it, it's pretty cool because for me, like I said, I know what it looks like because I'm in this world. For them, it's pretty unique because they're not creative like that. So to kind of give
Definitely.
that to them is pretty neat.
And it is a gift. I think creativity is definitely a gift.
Yeah. Well, Justine, I really appreciate the time and thank you for being on the podcast. If you're open to it, I'd
Thank
love that. I'd love
you.
to have you on again. So
Amazing. Such good conversation, Mike, and keep doing amazing things in the world.
yeah, I appreciate it. You too. And tell us, before we let you go, tell me a little bit about where they can find information on you and Million Dollar Brander.
Sure. So I am on every single platform. YouTube, go find me, Justine Pogroske _official. Same with Instagram, Twitter, or I should say X. X.
X, yep.
Um, I'm on basically every platform. I'm most active on Instagram though, I think, because I look at it like a visual diary, and then JustinePogroskeOfficial.com and milliondollarbranders.com. And I've got a podcast. So
Excellent.
find me on Spotify. Thank you so much, Mike.
If you'd like to learn more about CyberDogs, share your thoughts, or even ask a specific question about this episode and/or the brand retro mindset, contact me directly at mike@cyberdogsmarketing.com.